Hey, gang. Welcome back to another riveting episode of the Ben and Emil Show. We've got a special guest today.
We have a very fun episode.
Yeah, we got a really fun, it's really fascinating, informative episode, so stick around to the
We're
very
talking
end.
all about kind of the new nicotine industry that's taking form.
The way this came about, obviously, the Zyn shortage has been a major headline that we've all seen for a while.
And you guys are all aware of the Zinternet and the Zinfluencers.
Yeah, and so we had the opportunity to interview one of the founders of
Lucy,
Lucy, which is a rival company to Zyn. They make gum and they make nicotine pouches and stuff. And before we get right into it, we just wanted to disclose that this is not in any way like a product placement or a paid partnership with them. It's just we had the opportunity. He's a really interesting, well-informed guy.
Knows his stuff about the industry and
really knows his stuff.
Wanted to hear more about how it all came to be.
Yeah. So without further ado, here's the interview with John Coogan.
I'm working downtown with Ben and Emil. Tell me what's going on. Tell me what's going on. So listen on up to Ben and Emil. Tell me what's going on. Tell me what's going on.
All right. John, thank you very much for coming on.
We've got a very special guest.
Yes.
Thanks for having me.
This is a long time coming. We needed to get a certified nicotine expert on the pod. I don't know if you're familiar with the lore of the show at all, but Ben's had a almost maybe years long journey at this point now because I made the mistake of thinking he could. Are you familiar with the International Cigarette?
No.
Okay, so International Cigarette's it's a very important thing in every young man's life. It means that when you leave the country, you're allowed to smoke cigarettes.
Sure.
No, as soon as you step off U.S. soil,
yeah,
you can let them rip. And
but not for me.
It's like the meme, like drunk cigarettes don't count.
Sure,
so,
exactly.
International cigarettes don't count.
And so that I was a smoker. I went the traditional route. When I was probably 15.
Damn, you started when you were 15?
I thought
I got to talk to your dad.
I mean, but that's how it usually works,
Yeah,
right? When
totally.
when you when it was just cigarettes, you get people hooked when they're young because only dumb children would
fall for it.
I mean, yeah, it's a really bad thing for you. And so when I was a teenager, I would smoke cigarettes, and then probably when I was 25, I quit. And
How'd you quit?
yeah, just
Nice.
like stopped buying packs. Also, you know what a big part of it was? Moving to New York. They're so expensive. It's
Nice, interesting.
I mean, I was doing comedy in New York. I had no money. It was I mean, I'm talking, they were probably upwards of $15 a pack. And so, yeah, you just start going, what am I doing?
So the International Cigarette.
Yeah, the International Cigarette, I would still partake. And we went on a trip to Japan, and
I hadn't smoked in 12 years.
Yeah.
Something like that. And these guys are just ripping
we
darts.
said, it's totally fine to rip a cigarette. And he came back with a full-blown nicotine addiction.
Oh, yeah, dude.
But it's been funny to watch. He's been trying all these things. I have not been I'd not engaged with nicotine in a long time. But so Lucy, Zyn, all these things have been popping up on
part of my life.
Yeah, popping up on the radar. And so this is very fun to get to talk to John, one of the founders of Lucy.
Yes. So why don't you tell us who you are?
Yeah, I'm John Coogan, co-founder of Lucy. We sell tobacco-free products that contain nicotine. So our first product was nicotine gum. Similar to Nicorette, the regulatory structure is a little bit different. We're regulated as a tobacco product as opposed to a drug. So product like Nicorette, they go to the FDA, they get FDA drug approval. That's very similar to an Ozempic or a Viagra or an Adderall. Like there's a double-blinded study. It's very expensive, and then at the end of the day, the FDA says you now have permission to market this product as a drug that can make a claim to cure a disease. So for Ozempic, it was originally diabetes, but now it's just kind of obesity, right? For Nicorette, it's the disease of cigarette addiction. And so if you go to a pharmacy, you can see that Nicorette looks like a medicine. We liked we liked the form factor, we liked the data around the product, but we thought that there was an opportunity to take the nicotine gum market and try and introduce it to smokers who maybe weren't looking for a direct quick claim, and they weren't necessarily trying to cure the disease of cigarette addiction, but instead just looking for a better product that could win on taste, texture, flavor, strength, a variety of packaging and experience and branding.
Were you the only ones getting into that game, trying to knock Nicorette off their pedestal there?
There were a few companies. So Nicorette was designed as an FDA drug, right? And so huge investment, similar to any other biotech project to get a drug approval by the FDA. It costs a ton of money. Once you get approved, the FDA won't approve similar products for like a number of years. So you kind of have a monopoly. And so that's why drug development and biotechnology has been very profitable, although it's very risky. Like you create a cancer drug, there's a high chance that it does nothing. You don't get approved, just waste all the money. But if you get approved, then you can sell it for a very, very high price for a very long time, and you won't have a direct competitor. Then after a while, it goes generic. And that's what happened with Nicorette. So the nicotine gums became generic, and that's why if you go into CVS, yes, there will be Nicorette on the shelf, but there will also just be CVS brand or Kirkland brand. Amazon sells nicotine gum. They sell Amazon Basic Care brand nicotine gum. And so that so there were other companies. There was a company called Zonic that I think they were acquired by maybe Altria, one of the big tobacco companies, and they were also a white label product where they went to the manufacturer that makes all of the nicotine gum, that's all the generic stuff. So when you go to CVS or Rite Aid or Costco, it's all the same product, just different packaging around it. It's white labeled. Zonic was trying to do the same thing, but push it into a convenience store market. And so they'd done some rebranding. It was like a black package instead of a white package. It still said all of the drug things. It still had the aesthetics of a pharmaceutical product. But that was the idea. They wound up selling the company and then eventually shut that down. And now I think the Zonic brand is selling nicotine pouches and might be operating in Canada. I'm not exactly sure. But at the time, there were a few companies that were working on alternatives, and the industry is called the modern oral nicotine market. So you can think about everything that contains nicotine as one big market globally. That's like $1 trillion. In the United States, it's 100 billion. Then cigarettes are probably 55 billion, maybe 75 billion. It kind of depends on what metrics you're using in the US. So the vast majority of nicotine consumed in America is still cigarettes. And then you have vapor and e-cigarettes, and that's everything from your razor and blade model Juuls, where you buy the device, then you slot in pods one at a time. It's your massive rig that you have to refill and change, and there's custom batteries and all that stuff. And then there's also what they call smokeless. And so smokeless tobacco for a long time had been chewing tobacco, dip, loose leaf tobacco, ground up. You just put it in your lip. Still bad for you because it contains carcinogens and tobacco leaf, and that gives you cancer. And so there's countless stories about people who use smokeless tobacco, but even though they don't give people secondhand smoke or they don't get lung cancer, they get mouth cancer. It's very bad. That wave kind of led to more and more innovation in the industry and more removal of different parts and different ingredients. So the first big innovation was taking all that loose leaf dip tobacco that was very moist and loose in your mouth and putting it in a bag, essentially. And that's moist snus. So it's very popular in Sweden. Has the same tobacco leaf ground up, but it's in a small package that's then inserted into the lip. And then over time, different companies figured out that if you remove the tobacco leaf, you remove the carcinogens, and then you're able to launch a product like this, which, although it still contains nicotine, it's still addictive. It doesn't have a warning on the label that says this product causes cancer.
Yeah.
Whereas chewing tobacco does need to say that, and cigarettes obviously do as well.
Right. So can we just back up for 1 second? So
Please.
when you were talking about the FDA stuff, because you guys are not going the route of being classified as pharmaceuticals.
As a drug, as a pharmaceutical.
So how does your process differ from something like Nicorette.
Yeah. So the FDA kind of first approved a nicotine product decades ago with Nicorette, but they didn't have regulatory authority over cigarettes, which sounds crazy because it's like the number one thing that you would want the FDA to regulate, right?
Who regulates cigarettes?
For a long time, they were just unregulated.
Jesus.
Then there was
when they feel that good, do they need to regulate it?
Yeah, I mean, when they were invented, there were obviously still laws. There were like taxes, and eventually the FCC, the Federal Communications Commission, came in and made a bunch of rules about where cigarettes could advertise. And so they were primarily responsible to the FCC and said, look, we're like the FDA isn't going to look at the ingredients inside the product, which again doesn't make any sense, but the FCC will make sure that you're not advertising to kids or you're not advertising on TV shows
And
or
that's when we
race
lost
cars.
some of our biggest tobacco soldiers, Joe Cool, all of the
Exactly.
all of our
The Marlboro Man.
the Marlboro Man.
Joe Camel.
Oh,
Yeah,
Joe
Joe
Camel,
Camel,
Joe
man.
Camel, not Snoopy. Sorry to Snoopy.
Yeah.
Hey guys.
Oh boy.
Oh boy, we got to take a quick break.
We
We're
got to
gonna-
talk about Lumen.
Yeah, what is Lumen?
Lumen is the world's first handheld metabolic coach. It's
Ooh.
a device that measures your metabolism through your breath, and on the app, it lets you know if you're burning fat or carbs and gives you tailored guidance to improve your nutrition, workouts, sleep, and even stress management.
Okay, so that sounds interesting, right? All you got to do is breathe into your Lumen device first thing in the morning, and you'll know, it'll tell you through the app what's going on with your metabolism, whether you're burning mostly fats or carbs. And what does that do? Well, Lumen then gives you a personalized nutrition plan for that day based on those measurements. You can also breathe into it before and after workouts and meals, so you know exactly what's going on in your body in real time. And Lumen will give you tips to keep you on top of your health game.
Ooh, I love
Yeah.
that. Okay, look, you might be going, what the hell is metabolism? Metabolism is your body's engine. It's how your body turns the food you eat into the fuel that keeps you going. Okay, so because your metabolism is at the center of everything your body does, optimal metabolic health translates to a bunch of benefits, including easier weight management, improved energy levels, better fitness results, better sleep, and more. Okay.
And it gives you recommendations based on what it reads in your breath to improve your metabolic health. It can also track your cycle as well as the onset of menopause. That's a huge one. And adjust your recommendations to keep your metabolism healthy through hormonal shifts so you can keep up your energy and stave off cravings. So, if you want to take the next step in improving your health, go to lumen.me/bays to get 15% off your Lumen. That's LUMEN.me/bays for 15% off your purchase. Thank you, Lumen, for sponsoring this episode.
Like most of the pressure on the tobacco industry didn't come from the FDA up until the 90s and early 2000s. It came from the FCC and FTC, and also lots of taxes, and the big change in the industry came during the Master Settlement Agreement in the 90s, where the government basically went to the tobacco companies and said, you're giving everyone tons and tons of cancer. Obviously that's bad morally, but there's a financial problem with this, which is that when you give someone cancer, they come into the healthcare system and impose a cost on the taxpayer, because the taxpayer has to fund these cancer treatments. And so we need to take that money. You need to pay us back, basically. And so the Master Settlement Agreement was this multi-billion-dollar transfer of money from the tobacco companies to state and local governments. And so there are still state governments, local governments today that have, millions and millions of dollars coming in from the big tobacco companies.
They're still paying?
Oh yeah, they have to pay constantly, and then also because it's an annuity and they will be paying for a very long time. State and local governments can actually go out and finance those and say, hey, look, we have this agreement where big tobacco is going to pay us $10 million over the next 10 years. Can you give us the $100 million that we're going to get over the next 10 years right now so we can build some roads?
Wow.
So there's all these like financial instruments that have popped up around it.
That's fascinating.
But that was the major penalty that was kind of levied on the big tobacco industry in the 90s. FDA still didn't have regulatory authority. That didn't happen until Obama got elected. So in 2008, he gets elected and passes what's called the TCA, the Tobacco Control Act. The real name's longer. It's like the Family Smoking Control, and like there's a couple other.
He was
words in
always a
there.
closet smoker. He was never proud about it.
He did, yeah. He was a
He was
smoker.
always hiding behind the security door.
We saw him.
We
We
saw
saw you, dude.
We saw you.
I think that I hadn't actually put that together, but maybe I know that I think at some point he used nicotine gum to stop smoking. But I mean, I think it was on the FDA's agenda for a while to get regulatory authority, and a big reason for that was because prior to 2008, there was a company called Enjoy that launched the first major e-cigarette
I remember.
in the United States, and they bought a Super Bowl ad, I think, and they had a lot of big marketing campaigns, and they were actually making it pretty popular. And that product, which interestingly is now just like a month ago got approved by the FDA to sell, it was extremely controversial back in the early 2000s. So it grew very quickly. The FDA came in and said, look, you're marketing this as an unapproved, it was a combination medical and drug device. And so the FDA did always, or for a long time, has had authority over a number of different divisions. So obviously food. So they have regulations over, when you go to, some grocery store and how there's like those pre-made salads, those salads don't need to get approved individually. It's not like a drug like Ozempic. They don't need to do a double-blinded trial on this salad.
Right.
All they need to know is that lettuce is approved, croutons are approved, ranch dressing is approved, cheddar cheese is approved. You mix all those together. It sounds like a terrible salad, but you get what I'm saying.
Right.
As long as you're mixing together food ingredients that are generally recognized as safe by the FDA, you don't need any new approval. You can just come straight to the market with your product. And that's why there's so many new food products that come to the market. Because if you want to start a protein bar company, as long as you're using a protein ingredient that's been used by other companies, the FDA is aware of it, you're fine. If you want to bring something really novel, some completely new food, then the FDA might say, okay, we need to do some studies on this. The FDA also controls drugs, which we mentioned, like Ozempic, Viagra, Adderall, all the major drugs, cancer drugs, all sorts of stuff, vaccines. Then they do veterinary, biologics, medical devices. So that MRI machine that you go and get your MRI done in, that is approved by the FDA. Surgery robots, all sorts of stuff like that. Blood testing equipment that goes through FDA approval. Supplements, which are much less regulated than drugs, obviously. You can, as long as you are only making structure and function claims, you can say like, this improved liver health or something, or supports kidney function. You can't really go say like, it's a miracle weight loss burner or whatever. But the FDA still does have authority over supplements. And if you go and make crazy claims and do some crazy marketing and you're hurting people or you're putting something in there that's poisonous or problematic, they can come shut you down. But they couldn't in tobacco for a long time because they didn't have authority until 2008. So when Enjoy got really popular, the FDA brings this lawsuit and says, hey, you guys, you think you're not regulated by the FDA because cigarettes aren't regulated by the FDA. But in fact, you are. And we are making the argument that this is a drug product. It's designed to help people quit smoking. It should be regulated like Nicorette. And you haven't filed any of those forms. Therefore, you can't sell in the United States. And they were making it internationally. And so one of the big like hammers that the FDA has is they can put an import ban on your product. So when it comes through the ports, they say, we're not letting anything under Enjoy corporate come into the ports anymore.
Okay.
And so they were able to do that, pause all new shipments into the country, which essentially bankrupted the company because if they couldn't sell, they couldn't do anything.
Right.
They couldn't fight a court case. Now, that court case actually went, I believe, all the way to the Supreme Court, and they won. The FDA lost, and the Supreme Court, the result of that lawsuit was that the FDA did not have regulatory authority over nicotine products that did not make explicit quit claims. So if you had a nicotine product and you said, this helps you quit smoking, yeah, then you're in the drug category, then you're Nicorette. But if you didn't, and Enjoy really wasn't, what they were saying was just, this is a vape. It's fun.
Yeah.
It's cool.
It's like a cigarette, but
it's like a cigarette, but electric.
Yeah.
Exactly. They weren't really saying quit smoking with our product. They knew to stay away from that. So they didn't make that claim. They were only saying, hey, it's the new cool thing.
It's a new way to ingest
whatever they said.
nicotine.
I don't remember. But they said something, got popular. And so all of a sudden they were bankrupt but allowed to sell. The FDA didn't have authority, and so the FDA had to go through the legislation. And so that's where the TCA, the Tobacco Control Act, comes from. So the FDA, raises hands to the politicians and says, hey, this isn't going to be the last vape on the market. Like there's going to be more of these. Like, yeah, Enjoy's kind of bankrupt, but a hedge fund wound up coming in and buying them out of bankruptcy, turning the company around, wound up making it very successful. But there's going to be more, and we need authority over this. So the Tobacco Control Act gave the FDA authority over all tobacco-containing products.
So that whole $100 billion industry you're talking about is now under the control of the FDA.
It is, and they have
regardless of whether or not you're working for like smoking cessation.
Yes, essentially. Even although Nicorette is still responsible to the drug division, they don't need to talk to the tobacco guys because there's different offices within the FDA.
Right. So is that a more stringent procedure for someone like Nicorette getting the pharmaceutical classification than you?
Way more, right?
Yeah, I mean it depends. I mean, honestly, at this point, getting approval through the tobacco pathway has been years and years and years of work. So it's getting close to being equivalent. But in theory, yes, everyone in the industry is hoping for something called product standards, where similar to that salad analogy that I used, like if you're only using these ingredients, like these flavorings, these fillers, and this this paper and it's nicotine, then the FDA should be able to kind of sign off on it a little bit quicker, because they're like, hey, look, like this looks a lot like the thing that we just approved last week. There's no real changes in here, so we should maybe approve it to the same level. We're not going to say it's like amazing, but we will say that, okay, it's not more harmful than what we already have out there, which would be good. But with drugs, it's very different, because you have to do like a double-blinded trial. You really need to see the efficacy, and then also you need to show that there's some novel aspect to the approach.
Sorry.
Yeah.
I want to get this straight here. So
this is very wonky. We're really in the weeds.
No, it's not. It's
as
not
long as you're enjoying it.
It's wild to me. So I'm making sure I understand this correctly. Yeah. So if you're like a Nicorette or a vape, yep, and if you make a drug-like claim, yep, like, hey, we help you quit smoking.
Exactly.
You're putting yourself on a path of regulatory nightmares that could last years. Whereas if you go just the recreational route and you just say, hey, we're just a nicotine product, you sort of avoid that. And yep, Enjoy got fucked because they weren't saying the drug thing, but the FDA just kind of pinned it on them.
Kind of.
And then they just got kind of fucked over. But
yeah,
so,
a little bit, yeah.
Does that mean Lucy you're not able to market as a
smoking cessation?
Yeah, like an effective way to...
So we technically do have a product that we have a nicotine lozenge that is regulated like Nicorette.
Oh.
And so for that product, we can make quick claims.
Okay.
And so it's helpful to have a portfolio of these products, because if a smoker comes to us and says, I need a product that's approved by the FDA to help me quit smoking, well, yes, we have that. But for many smokers and vape users or pouch users, they just want the best nicotine product, and whether that's our gum or our pouch, like that's what wins them over. Right. So the mission of the company is still to end cigarettes, like that's what animates us, but the claims that we make are very much based on the current FDA standards in each product category, and they happen to be different across different categories.
I mean, can we talk about the mission of the company? I find this all very interesting, because I mean, I think everyone that's not a cigarette, regardless of what they're saying to the FDA or regulatory bodies, it seems like the goal is we're better than cigarettes. Don't go for cigarettes, sure, go for us. And so what is the goal? Because you don't want to get more people hooked on nicotine, or do you? Or
no.
Okay.
No. I mean,
or is the goal just to get more of that chunk of the $100 billion?
Exactly. It's just switch everyone over from cigarettes to something else.
Because for me, my experience has been that, as someone who started the traditional way, smoked young, then quit, it's been very odd. I feel like I'm watching a lot of friends in their 30s who had never experienced nicotine, sure, now getting addicted to nicotine. And I'm like, this feels very odd. This is usually what happens when you're a teenager. But I'm watching grown men, crying about the Zyn shortage. I mean, I'm watching Tucker Carlson on fucking Fox News be like, everyone should be on this. It's amazing.
It raises your sperm or your testosterone.
So it does feel like there's a bit of, I think there is a new market growing as well as not just the.
Yeah. So, I mean, like historically, even before the cigarette, humans were using nicotine. And so for a certain portion of the population, it's totally possible that they just enjoy the benefits of nicotine or the effects of nicotine and never really feel bad about that or never wanted to, lower or reduce their dosage. That's terrible if it's paired with a combustible cigarette,
Right.
because it will almost certainly lead to cancer. Cigarettes kill 50% of people who use them.
Right.
They kill 500,000 people in America every year. It's like 8 million.
And if not cancer, other horrible things that
exactly.
adversely impact your life.
And so the FDA has this concept called the continuum of risk. Basically, they don't say that any nicotine product is free of risk. And that's why every nicotine product, including ours, has a warning label on it. Just the warning label reflects where you are on that continuum of risk.
What does yours say?
Ours say this product contains nicotine. Nicotine is an addictive chemical. So there's literally an addiction warning. Like the risk of using this product is addiction to nicotine, whereas the risk of using cigarettes is the risk of lung cancer. Right? And so generally the industry strategy has been to try and migrate everyone down the continuum of risk. Move from, cigarettes to smokeless tobacco, which still has carcinogens in it, but is much less likely to kill you because it doesn't give you lung cancer, but the mouth cancer is still a risk. And then get you to something that's tobacco free. So then cancer is not as much of a risk. And then just move everyone down. And then once you have a population that's not on carcinogenic nicotine, like tobacco free, essentially. This is like the Swedish society where they've essentially become tobacco free and cigarette free. I think
Swedes are always on the cutting edge.
Yeah, they are in this case for sure. Then there's the question of like, okay, so if people are addicted and unhappy about that, how can they get off of it most effectively? And there are still a host of ways to get off of nicotine and cure addiction.
Yeah,
whether that's everything from like hypnosis to cold turkey to titrating down and weaning off to, there are all sorts of like different pharmaceutical drugs that have been approved for treating nicotine addiction specifically. And so there's this continuum of risk all the way down to cold turkey. But it's really important that there are off ramps from each to the next.
Right.
Makes sense.
It does seem like we've kind of hit the great dream of nicotine consumption where vapes, I remember when vapes came out. I mean, I think the first time I encountered one was probably like 2012 or something like that. And people were like, yeah, it's way better than
totally
cigarette.
safe.
Totally safe.
It's
And I
totally
remember we went out drinking and I probably hadn't smoked in a while at that point. And I was like, all right, whatever. And I was hitting my friends all night and I woke up my chest I was like, what the fuck? And I was like, there's no way that can be good for you. But now it seems like we've hit this new, I don't know, this new thing on the ziggurat of like,
yeah,
we're gonna.
Yeah, the vape thing is interesting because there have been vapor products that have been approved by the FDA. They're not even really called vapes. They're more like nicotine inhalers, and they're very expensive. They're prescription drugs. They're never really got to wide popularity. It might be like $500 per
Jesus,
or something like that. Your insurance would cover it.
A far cry from the Elf bar.
Exactly. But what that means is that product was developed by a biotech company, a pharmaceutical company. It had to go through trials, and the FDA looked at every single ingredient in there, all the flavors, all the chemicals, and probably isn't very much. It's probably as pure as possible. And they determined that product, all of these approvals are based on, pros and cons. Like every drug, most drugs have side effects. But if the benefit vastly outweighs the cost, then the FDA will approve. And that's why, no matter what drug you're taking, like, the cancer drugs, they make your hair fall out, but like, I'd be happy to lose my hair if it cures my cancer. Right. And it's the same thing for these products. Now with the vapes, they're starting to get approved by the FDA, but not approved in the drug sense. They're getting authorized for sale, which just means that they've passed the hurdle that the FDA has in place, which is they've deemed them suitable for the protection of public health, which means that they recognize that when they approved Enjoy recently, they approved a flavored version of Enjoy, the menthol flavor. So it's a mint flavored vape. This is a very controversial thing. I mean, a couple of years ago during the Juul saga, we were really litigating this as a society, whether or not we should have flavored vape products on the market. And what apparently they found, or what it seems like they found, was, since they authorized this product, was that yes, there is a risk that kids use the product, which is very bad, and we can talk about that more. There's a risk that an adult might pick up this and then migrate to cigarettes, and that could kill them. That's extremely risky if that happens. But there's also the chance that a smoker picks this up, never smokes a cigarette again, and saves their life. And so the FDA is balancing those two things out. And they've done a lot of research, and the team behind Enjoy, I'm sure, did a whole bunch of scientific research and market surveys and studies, and really tried to understand, because they've sold millions of these Enjoy products. They're in something like, I don't know, 50,000 stores or something. Like it's pretty widely distributed at this point. And so I'm sure what they did was they looked at all of their customers and said, okay, we have very few, underage users. We have very few users who start with our product and then migrate to cigarettes. And we have tons of smokers who started using our product and never went back to smoking. Right. And the FDA said, look, this is suitable for the protection of public health. We're not going to let you say that it's less harmful than cigarettes. That's a different tier. That's a different category of approval. I'm sure they'll try for that eventually. But for right now, and they also won't let them say this helps you quit smoking, but they will let you sell it, which is the authorization.
Can we do a quick rundown of that Juul saga? Because
sure. It's fascinating.
Yeah, and it's a bit confusing because it gets banned, but then things that seem explicitly like marketed to children, Elf bars, it's like, I mean, I've seen kids mixing flavors and sucking two at once, and that kid was me drunk at Club TG. But it gets banned. For some reason, other people are allowed to do it. Then it's okay. So what exactly is going on with Juul?
Yeah. So, I mean, we talked about the Enjoy saga. Juul was started years and years ago. I don't exactly remember the date that the company started, but they had a couple false starts where they launched one product called Plume. They wound up selling that off to JTI, the Japan tobacco conglomerate, big tobacco company. They had another kind of weed vape. It didn't include cannabis, but it was often used for vaporizing cannabis. It was,
like you could just place a cartridge in or something?
Not even a cartridge. You could place loose leaf. So it was designed that you could put tobacco in there and then you could vaporize the tobacco, but the majority of users were probably using cannabis with that. But then they kind of went back to the nicotine vape, and they discovered that if they used nicotine salts, they could get a much higher concentration of nicotine in the vapor. So if you remember before Juul, people who used vapes, they would have these like pretty large devices. Yeah. They would suck on them and then they would blow out. It'd be this massive cloud.
Yeah, they would do tricks.
And the dubstep would play and the lights would be flashing. It was like kind of like a crazy, like cyberpunky 2006, 2009 like vibe. It was very not cool.
Yeah.
Very not cool. And Juul figured out that if they concentrated the nicotine in there, it would deliver more nicotine in a smaller puff. And so the end result was that when you use the Juul, you wouldn't need to exhale this massive cloud. And so that became very popular. It became popular with smokers. It also became very popular with kids. And what the FDA was tracking was the percentage of youths that would use a particular type of nicotine. So there's a survey that happens every year where pediatricians across the nation have to issue a survey to the kids that come in. So you come in for your physical, you're 15, and they ask you, have you, like, we're not going to take you to jail. Just tell us, like, did you drink? Did you smoke? Did you use cigarettes? Did you use vapes? What brands did you use? And all of these statistics are kind of compiled and then used to track trends. And the hope is that cigarettes drop to zero and everything else just stays at zero.
Right.
When Juul was introduced, kids were already vaping. Something like 20% of kids under 18 were using vapor products because there were a lot of other popular brands on the market. Yeah. But
And at this point, you had to be 18 to buy
You had to be
them.
18 back then. Now it's 21,
yeah.
which is a
Okay.
huge,
But
huge
so they were getting them
improvement.
illegally somehow.
I mean,
You're
yeah,
getting them
if
from
you're
cool
high school,
older kids. Man.
exactly. Yeah, yeah. A high school senior could step out at lunch break, which is crazy.
Right.
It's like it's such an improvement that we've moved to 21 plus. Obviously, there's still bleed over and there's still problems there, but it's at least like a step in the right direction. And so the Juul phenomenon became extremely viral, and we saw that the youth usage rates of vapor products exploded. So it went from something like 20% before Juul was introduced to almost 40%.
Whoa.
And during this time, cigarettes were declining a ton, which was great, but nicotine use overall was increasing way more. And that was the problem of that like cost benefit analysis, right? Ideally, you want to introduce products that just kill off the cigarettes and they don't increase any nicotine use in society.
Right.
So basically, the Juul, like the way the FDA saw Juul was that at the time it was like a net negative on the, in their mission of protecting the public health, right? And so during this time, after the Tobacco Control Act, the TCA in 2008, the FDA created a framework for bringing products to the market. They have what's called a pre-market tobacco approval application. This big, it's not quite as rigorous as a new drug application, but it's quite rigorous. And it's like a major filing with a lot of scientific evidence that you have to submit about how your product works, how it affects people, how it's marketed. It covers like, hundreds of different variables that the FDA can review and say, you know what, this product does have that net benefit. What happened with Enjoy in the end, just like a month or two ago? When they looked at Juuls, they made the determination kind of that Juul was not having a net positive effect. That's not technically what happened. Technically, they got them kind of on a technicality and they rejected their application. And so they issued them what's called a marketing denial order saying that you can no longer sell this product in the United States. That was the ban. Now that ban was overturned in the courts. They got a stay of the decision in the courts. The courts found that the FDA had not evaluated the application properly. I think it was something related to like the model number or like the particular type of machine that they used to test something, where Juul corporate did have that information and would have happily shared it with the FDA, but the FDA didn't ask. They just said, hey, this is missing. And so it was kind of one of these things where it wasn't like the spirit and the politics was like Juul is bad, so we need to ban it. But then the actual decision was based on kind of a technicality. So they got that paused, but no one really remembers that. Everyone just thinks Juul got banned.
Right.
And so then they went in and they, resubmitted with the FDA, started working with them more. They wound up, Altria kind of wrote down their investment. They wound up kind of recapitalizing the company, doing a bunch of different financial deals. And just recently, the FDA formally reversed that ban and said, hey, you guys have been good for the last few years. Besides, realistically, all the kids moved on to different products, which we can talk about in a minute. So maybe we should look at this Juul thing again. And you guys have submitted a whole bunch more data, and you guys have been good citizens, and you haven't done anything crazy, and you kind of been, good citizens. So let's reevaluate this. We'll take another look at your application. So they reversed the MDO, and they said, hey, we're going to start looking at it again. And so the FDA has been looking through these vapor applications. Enjoy kind of wound up at the front of the pile, because Juul was such a big one that they got banned and then kind of got put on the back burner. The focus moved over to Enjoy. Now the FDA will probably start looking at Juul again. But meanwhile, while all this chaos is happening in kind of like the big brands, there's tons and tons of opportunistic entrepreneurs who are jumping in and selling products that really have no strategy to interface with the FDA. They're not even trying to put together an application and convince the FDA that this is suitable for the protection of public health. They don't care.
Is that something like Elf Bar?
I don't know about Elf Bar specifically, because the company Elf Bar specifically has like they've changed hands a couple times. Like the brand's actually been sold. And so it's very hard to say like what that company even is. But yes, like the disposable vapes that you see at the corner store, the brand name changes every 2 weeks.
Tastes fully like candy.
And yeah, exactly. It's super strong, super cheap, super poorly made, imported, and just has like a ton of chemicals. They're not even planning on submitting to the FDA. Hey, here's what's in it. Is this okay? No way.
They're just trying to make a quick buck, right?
Exactly.
And it's kind of like a hydra. You cut off one head and 3 more grow because
100%.
Explain that the distribution network is such that and they're international, they're overseas, so it's like they can't do anything, right?
Yep, exactly. So there will be a number of manufacturing plants abroad, many in China. The main company that people think of when they think behind Elf Bar is the Shenzhen iMiracle company, which is just a hilarious name to me because it's like kind of like Apple, like iPhone, but iMiracle. I don't know.
Well, it's a miracle how we got you to quit cigarettes.
Yeah, exactly.
I was going to say it's a miracle how great these flavors are.
Yeah.
So many flavors to choose from. Anyway, go on.
And so, there will be a number of manufacturing hubs with the equipment to manufacture disposable vapes. Then those get shipped to America. And in order to get into America, they have to have a company that's receiving them, and that company has to be in good standing with the FDA. And so, like what happened with Enjoy, where the FDA said, "Hey guys, at the ports, no more imports of Enjoy products." If the FDA comes and says, "Hey, we issued a marketing denial order for Elf Bar or for Puff Bar or one of these companies," then when it gets to the ports, they won't be able to bring it in. But if the company changes their name or sets up a new shell entity, then all of a sudden the FDA has to issue a new denial. And so in that time, you can ship in $10 million of product before they even catch you. And then once you're in the United States, you have the product, then you can just put it on the shelves in all the different retailers. And the retailers they're not equipped to figure out what's approved by the FDA and what's not. And also it's not that these products, like, up until Enjoy, there weren't that many products that were actually authorized. Yeah. So the only thing that you could say, you wouldn't like a store owner wouldn't say, "I only sell authorized products." If they were good and legal, they would say, "I don't sell banned products," right? And so when Juul was banned for that like couple week period, they would have not had Juul on their shelves. But then when that ban was overturned, they would be fully legal to put Juul back on the shelf. And then once Juul, if they get authorized, they would be able to keep it on their shelves. Now, there are big chains, and something like, a Walmart doesn't sell Juul, but they would never sell some illicit vape that doesn't have FDA, isn't in good standing with the FDA.
Right.
Huge regulatory risk. And the FDA can levy fines against individual retailers, and they've gone into corner stores and said, "That vape right there, that's illegal. We banned that. You shouldn't be carrying that. You should have looked it up in our database before you bought that and put it on your store shelves. Here's a fine for $1,000." And for a lot of corner stores, it's like, yeah, that's a lot of money.
But there's tens of thousands of corner stores, and the FDA does not have the manpower, the money, the resources to go and enforce
door by door. Exactly. Jeez. Because they only set up this tobacco control center, like, 2008 was when they got granted the authority, and then it took years to get the funding and hire people. Most of the people are scientists who are looking at the data behind Juul and these applications. They're not necessarily field agents, so they don't really have the muscle to go door to door. And so it's been very tricky to enforce that. And that's why now it's estimated, no one really knows, but it's estimated that the illegal vape market is the second largest nicotine market in the United States after cigarettes.
Jesus. Jesus.
Yeah.
Wait, so where
just changing the name like that? Just
basically.
God damn.
Where is what are we talking about when we're talking about like non-vapor, non-smoke products like this versus like vapor? Have people moved on from the vapor movement, or is it still?
Vapor is still huge.
Okay. Because it feels like
it is declining. And a lot of that's due to enforcement. So the FDA just created a new framework. So you know how I was mentioning that like they've had the ability to ban imports with a certain company name. They're now switching to, you have to have an authorization number. I forget what the exact term is. It's some big long acronym, but when you go to the port, you're bringing in a vape, you have to give them your FDA approved number even if you're not fully authorized, at least you're in good standing. And so the FDA is shifting from basically from a blacklist to a whitelist.
That's
so
great.
Yeah, should be a huge improvement. And everyone wants this to happen. It's interesting because the FDA wants it to happen because obviously it's bad for public health if people are using, dangerous products that aren't even trying to be in compliance with the FDA. Big Tobacco wants this because they don't like the competition. They want people buying Enjoy or Juul or whatever they have ownership over. The anti-smoking nonprofits want this because they don't want people using illicit products, and a lot of these products do target underage users. A lot of the corner stores that they're sold in don't necessarily card, and so it's been like a rare case where a lot of different organizations have aligned around putting kind of the end, like maybe we're in the early innings of the beginning of the end of like the illicit vapor market. But you're right that the categories are growing at different rates, and e-cigarette and vapor is declining, not by a ton, maybe 5 or 10% a year. Cigarettes are also declining about 10% a year. And then smokeless is growing at maybe 10, 20% a year.
It's all obviously anecdotal, but it just feels like, I don't know, 5 or 10 years ago, I would be at a party, I'd see so many people with e-cigarettes. It feels like, just Sunday we were
now it's pouches.
We were all together and everyone pulling out pouches, and I'm like, wow, there's been a real shift.
You know why? Because they rock, dude.
Yeah, it's definitely been a big shift in terms of culture, like just the culture of Zyn and the modern oral nicotine pouch. It's really broken through the zeitgeist. Now, Zyn was created 10 years ago. 2014 was
by
when
the
they
Swedes,
launched.
right?
Yeah, Swedish Match is the company. They have a headquarters in North America as well, and it's owned by Philip Morris International, which is a huge conglomerate.
Whatever
so kind of all over, but yeah,
whatever the online culture is has propelled it into. Do you have any insight on how that even happened? I don't. All of a sudden, there was just this internet.
Totally, yeah. This internet's a great term.
I think influencers.
Yeah, I think right now there's a big narrative in the media that like this was all so methodically thought out by the big tobacco companies to like get the next thing to work, but I don't really buy it. Like I've met some of these people, and I think the days of big tobacco creating the Marlboro Man are gone. I don't think that they employ those types of marketers anymore. I think those marketers, it was big in the 60s in the Mad Men era because it was seen as the biggest industry, the coolest industry. It wasn't immoral to go work for them. Then over the last 30 years with the master settlement agreement and these billion-dollar fines, these companies have completely shifted their cultures to be focused. They're run by lawyers now. And so when you think of Zyn, there is no Marlboro Man. What is their tagline, right? Like, I think it's technically Find Your Zyn, which is a reference to Find Your Zen, because it was like a Zen reference. But like, you've seen who uses this stuff. Are they Zen Buddhists?
No. It's frat boys.
It's frat bros, right?
It's
So they were able to break through there, but I don't like, if you went into Swedish Match in 2014 and you were able to dig through all their documents, I don't think that they have a slide deck out there that says, oh yeah, in 10 years, Tucker Carlson's going to be hanging out with the Nelk boys and like promoting this. Like, I don't think they had that much foresight. I think what actually happened was they realized that there's this continuum of risk, that if they want to keep selling nicotine and keep their business going, they need to get away from cigarettes. Cigarettes are a political issue. They're expensive. Like, people are waking up to the fact that they're bad. They're not smoking them as much. They're getting really expensive. There's a million reasons why. And so these companies wanted to ultimately get smokers to quit smoking, which just sounds crazy because it's like their core business. But if they can launch a product that replaces it and doesn't cause cancer, then they have the best thing ever, right? Because then they have a great business model, leverages all their supply chain and their distribution, but it doesn't come with any of the moral baggage.
It becomes like coffee.
Exactly.
Caffeine.
Exactly.
Which is kind of where, that's still the fucked up thing for me, is accepting or believing that these pouches are, I say this very carefully, they're virtually harmless, except that they raise your blood pressure a bit.
Well,
and
can
they
we
are
talk about that
addictive.
before just saying that?
Yeah,
Because
no,
well,
for sure.
I mean, from your yeah, we've talked about the harms of cigarettes and vapor and e-cigarettes and all that. Like, let's talk about what is in in
Yeah, what the fuck
Lucy
is in
and
these?
in Zyn
Yeah.
and whether or not they are. I don't want to say healthy. I'm not going to say
Well,
healthy.
I'm not going to say that
yeah,
they're
yeah,
healthy.
I don't know what other.
I don't
word.
think it's healthy for your blood pressure to
Yeah.
go up like that, especially when you're someone like me who's.
But it's obviously better than those other products. But what is actually in?
Yeah, I mean, it's a pretty simple formulation. Tobacco-free nicotine is the main one. Like, you have to extract the nicotine from the tobacco plant completely. There are two ways to do this. One is just take the tobacco leaf, you grind it up, centrifuge it, treat it until you've separated these things out. If you've ever done a centrifuge experiment, you take the test tube and then the different elements are at different kind of columns in the test tube, kind of like that, but you're extracting the pure nicotine from the tobacco plant, getting rid of all the carcinogens. You can also synthesize nicotine. Doesn't even use the tobacco plant at all. And of course, if you're not introducing carcinogens, then you shouldn't have any cancer risk. There are a ton of different studies on like the health impacts of nicotine, and it's a very controversial issue right now. Like there's a lot of people out there that are like, it's amazing, it's so good.
Yeah.
And then there are lots of people that are like, it's terrible, it's brain poison. And I think that the answer is kind of in the middle. Like, I think it's obviously a huge upgrade that that you're able to remove the carcinogens. Like that's obviously such a big upgrade over cigarettes. But I don't think that the coffee comparison is perfect, because they are more addictive than coffee, and it's because they have a shorter active half-life. And so if you ever notice, if you drink a Red Bull and it's 100 milligrams or something, if you drink it at 3 p.m., that might throw off your sleep, right? Because the half-life of caffeine is like 8 hours.
Right.
And so you feel it later into the day. That can be an advantage or a disadvantage depending on your sleep schedule or how long you're trying to work. But with nicotine pouches, the half-life's maybe 45 minutes. And so that's why you'll see a lot of people chain smoking, right? They finish one cigarette and then they're like, okay, the nicotine's out of my system, I need more.
Right.
And so the shorter the half-life, the more addictive the product. So cigarettes are extremely addictive because you breathe it in, you get the hit extremely quickly. Nicotine absorbed through the lungs hits your brain faster than if you injected it into your arm. Like, it's extremely fast. Now, oral nicotine is a little bit slower, but we're still not talking caffeine level.
Right.
So these products are addictive, and it is fair to say that nicotine is more addictive than caffeine. But I think in general, I feel quite confident about the product just because I don't think it will take any years off my life.
So are you guys using synthetic nicotine, or are you guys extracting?
So we actually use both. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. There's trade-offs between the two. Like, tobacco-derived nicotine, obviously it's cheaper and it's more abundant because there's like tobacco fields all over the world. But there's a big question about, like, should we be using like our fertile lands to grow tobacco? Maybe we should use that to grow, like, I don't know, corn or rice or whatever else. And then with synthetic, obviously there's it's more expensive, but doesn't have any of the kind of like environmental concerns,
Right.
If it's manufactured effectively.
And it comes carcinogen free, apparently.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, but both can be tested for purity, and I mean they've tested Zyn for all sorts of stuff.
Okay, so outside of the nicotine, what is in there?
Yeah, so cellulose, which is like plant fiber, basically.
Okay.
Like, if you use one of these pouches and then you spit it
that's
out,
just what it's
you'll
wrapped
know.
in.
Yeah, it's not wrapped in it like that. That's like a paper material, but the actual like bulking agent inside.
Okay.
So when you spit one out, you've noticed that like you got all the flavoring and nicotine out of it, but there's still something there.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what is that? That's just like filler. That's cellulose. Basically just ground up plant fibers. So you take a tree, you grind it up. It's like basically like sawdust almost, but extracted even further. And then there's a few other things like pH boosters, because nicotine needs to be absorbed through an alkaline environment. Can't absorb in an acidic environment. This is why there's no nicotine beers or nicotine energy drinks. Like,
Ooh, now you're talking.
that seems like a
Wait,
really
hold on.
What?
That's our idea. We call that one.
Yeah.
It's impossible. It's impossible.
Says you.
Yeah, it says you.
Yeah,
dude.
yeah.
Come on.
I mean, people have raised money for that, and they've tried to build companies around it.
the
and
science
it's
just, yeah.
God, the tech just isn't there.
it just isn't there. People have tried different micro encapsulation stuff, but it seems like an obvious thing, because if you
Because
look at what
nothing
happened
feels
with
better than smoking
weed
a
and
cigarette.
cannabis and CBD, there are drinks, there are gummy bears and bars. Like, we put caffeine and THC and alcohol and like everything, basically. Why not nicotine? You'd think people would have come up with that already, but it actually is impossible from a biological perspective.
And when I'm talking about just going back on the safety
Yeah,
quote
sure.
in quotes,
Yeah.
like Nicorette's been around for decades.
Yeah.
And you never hear, or at least I could be totally ignorant. I'm ignorant about all of this, but I feel like if Nicorette were a major cause of oral cancers and stuff, we would have heard about it by now, and it would be like, hey, yeah, Nicorette's okay, but just be sure to not stay on it, you know?
Yeah, I mean, that's literally what gave us the confidence to start the company. Like,
Yeah.
we didn't want to start a company where it would be like, oh, we wind up doing a bunch of harm down the road.
Yeah.
I've been trying to get funding for. I'm trying to do recreational patches, and there's just not a
Yeah, the
extremely long
patches.
half-life. Extremely long half-life because it's delivered so slowly
Forgot
that it's
about
even less
patches.
addictive.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just
Um,
don't see patches coming back.
No, yeah, they're not as cool. You can't whip them out at a party and go, anybody want to smack
And
this on your
we'll
arm?
Apply a patch.
Unless you made like
Somebody
a
would do
ring
it.
or a bracelet or something. That might be cool.
Somebody might try and
Well,
do it,
but
but again,
that's-
very hard to launch that product.
And you use your own
I do,
shit,
yeah.
obviously. Yeah.
Were you a
okay.
smoker?
no,
No.
no.
See,
I
So
mean,
how did you
smoked a
get
few
into this?
cigarettes. Yeah, I mean, my co-founder was quitting smoking, and had studied, and my other co-founder had studied the nicotinic receptor at Caltech, and they'd kind of done the biotech side of business, and saw that the product was that there was like an opportunity in this space to have a much larger impact than going the biotech route.
Yeah.
Like, he was working on cancer drugs, and it was like, if there was a blockbuster outcome, you would help maybe 5,000 people avoid cancer or something like that. But we've helped like something like over 10,000 people.
well,
You
even-
helped me, truthfully. A guy at my gym turned me on to your gum.
Yeah.
I'd never heard of it before, and yeah, I tried it, and I was still smoking because I liked them. But yeah, and then I switched over to Don't Kill Me, but I went over to Zyn,
There you go.
and do you use Zyn at all, or are you just your own product?
I've tried it. I like our product more. I
Interesting.
think it's much better.
You like the flavors, huh?
the flavors, and also, I mean, we developed a product that has a capsule inside.
Oh
And
yeah.
So the capsule, you crack it and it moistens the pouch. And this is kind of like a general trend in the category around like a version 2 of the pouch,
Yeah.
which is more moist, because the dry pouches are what's in America right now, but they're not the most popular internationally.
Yeah.
And so I think there will be a revision in the industry to moist pouches.
What's your plan? Are you guys gonna like try to go public, or is your goal to sell to an Altria or a Philip Morris? Or at this point, I'm sure that there are probably some CPG brands that may even start to want to be interested in. Because if
I don't think
nicotine
any-
starts to lose the stigma as the continuum of addiction, what was it called? The continuum of
Continuum
risk.
Yeah. I don't think there used to be a big crossover between food and tobacco products. Like RJ Reynolds was a big one. They bought Nabisco, and there's this big merger. It's Barbarians of the Gate. It's a big like the biggest LBO of all time, a big private equity deal with KKR. But the business models have never gone that well together. They're not actually that synergistic. They distribute through different channels, gas stations versus like grocery stores. It's just a different world, very different production methods, different regulatory bodies. Obviously, there isn't as much synergy as people think. So I don't think that's one. I think we have an advantage just to staying independent. We currently have the longest tenured CEO in the entire tobacco industry.
Whoa. And
Because-
it's not you.
No, it's my co-founder, David.
Oh.
He's been CEO of this company for 8 years, and every other big tobacco company has turned over their CEO like every 4 years.
Huh.
And so there's like this compounding advantage to being a company that has never sold a cigarette, but is still like in it for the long term, run by the founders.
Yeah.
And that compounding advantage, I think, just gets more and more powerful.
How many employees do you guys have?
We have like 10 right now. It's pretty small.
Wow,
Are you
that's
fucking
incredibly
kidding
small.
me?
Yeah,
10?
something like that. Yeah.
Wow.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
Holy shit. And where do you rank?
I mean, a lot of it's like if you go and sell a product, you could like one guy could sell $1 million worth of product in
Yeah.
a day, right? Like if they just say like put it in all these chains, like call someone and push it.
Wow.
So I mean, there are lots of people working on the manufacturing side, and there are lots
Sure.
of people working on the retail and distribution side. But in terms of like the actual company, it's very thin.
And how did you guys avoid the same supply constraints that Zyn has? Is it just because Zyn is just so insanely popular right now?
Yeah, for sure. That, I mean, we honestly, scaling production's really, really hard for everyone, and the entire industry is kind of out of stock right now, honestly, mostly because the category did grow beyond expectations, and then the Swedish Match team wasn't able to keep up, and I think their projections might have just been off, but they kind of missed on their own forecasts, and so
Can't underestimate people's-
so all the brands that had slot capacity kind of maxed out and grew a ton, and then they eventually hit their capacity as well. So basically everyone's at capacity now.
You can't underestimate people's love for nicotine.
Yeah, it's more just like because it's like the actual nicotine usage rate in America isn't really climbing. It's more just that Zyn's popular, and so people are switching from dip and chewing tobacco and vapes and cigarettes.
And I feel like it's important to note humans have enjoyed nicotine long before
50,000 years.
people started, like companies started just mass producing cigarettes.
I mean, like there was not a really, like tobacco was not an epidemic in our.
So Tucker Carlson is right.
About what?
Well,
Yeah, what is it? I don't even know what he says.
He
Really.
says a
well,
lot of
that's the
different
thing
things.
is everything is such a culture war thing that as soon as he sort of said, I like Zyn and Zyns are good, it kind of, it even works on me where it subconsciously becomes like, oh, okay, now Zyns and by virtue of the fact that it's kind of a
So
frat
it took
guy
Tucker
thing,
Carlson to say it.
it's like, okay, now the Republicans own that.
Well, how did it become? Do you have any insight on like
explain that.
the right? It became like a weird right-wing thing almost.
Yeah. I mean, like going back to like the, like how Zyn became popular, it's really just like they created a better product, something that tasted better. And then like the fact that it didn't contain carcinogens was like a little silver lining. They weren't able to market it as something that is better for you than smoking.
Yeah.
Weirdly, they can make that claim about General Snus, which is also owned by the same company that created Zyn.
General Snus has the carcinogens.
It does. But they got what's called a MRTP, modified risk tobacco product approval. So you can think about these, the FDA approvals kind of as like 3 tiers. Tier 1 is PMTA. That just says, look, it's legal for you to sell it. You have to put a label on it that says it's, an addictive chemical. You can't say it helps you quit smoking. You can't say it's better for you than cigarettes, but you can sell it if it's 21 plus in a store, blah, blah, blah. Then there's the MRTP. This is the modified risk tobacco product application. And that lets you say, this is less harmful than cigarettes. That's great in my opinion. And I want our products to get there. I want Zyn to get there. I want every product where the science says that, I want the regulation to match that. And if that's not the case, then I don't want those approvals. I don't want a more harmful cigarette somehow sneaking in there, right? That'd be terrible. And then the third tier is that smoking cessation aid, the drug classification. That's the Nicorette. And Nicorette can make that claim. Now, Swedish Match, the company that owns Zyn, climbed those 2 hurdles with their previous product, General Snus. And that is just loose leaf tobacco ground up, wrapped in a pouch. They brought it to America. They got approval for the PMTA, legal for them to sell it. And then they got MRTP, legal for them to say this is less harmful than cigarettes. Kind of weird because it's not the healthiest product in my opinion. Like I personally would never use it, but I think they're right. And I think the FDA made a good call. I think that product is less harmful for you than cigarettes. And so I think it's good. And my hope is that there is enough, scientific resource to evaluate all the products in the market, because I think we'll do very well. Now, I can't say that, we are less harmful than cigarettes today, but I want to get there. And it's going to take years and millions of dollars.
Question, is there a push from companies like you to get that classification?
Oh, 100%. Yeah.
Because then you can go out and say, we know that nicotine is like safe kind of thing.
No, you just say it's less harmful than cigarettes.
Gotcha.
But you don't feel comfortable at this
I
point.
legally can't say it.
Yeah, but right. But personally, you feel that way.
Oh yeah, of course.
Yeah,
I wouldn't start the company unless I believe that we would eventually get
it's
there.
been a
You
very
wouldn't be sticking them in your damn mouth.
Exactly.
It's been a very confusing thing for me. I'm like
It's super
naturally
confusing.
very skeptical, and when all this was getting popular, I was like, "There's no way. There's no way."
Yeah.
There's like, and we were looking at stuff when we were preparing for the episode,
Yeah.
and I've seen doctors be like, "Yeah, the real risk is addiction," and I'm like, there's no other real. It's fucking
I know.
confusing.
There are other risks,
Yeah.
right? There's the bigger question of like, is nicotine good or bad? And then, but just in terms of risk, I mean, there's obviously acute risk. Like nicotine can, just like caffeine, if you take 100 milligrams of it, you can acutely die. Like it can kill you in the moment if you chugged a bottle of it or something, or like got it all over your skin. Like that would be bad. And then like addiction has a number of different things. There's like the mental cost of like having to
that's what they
prioritize
brought
something
up.
in your life, having to think about this thing instead of work that could make you
Financial
money or
cost.
something. Yeah, financial cost is very real. There are a number of different things. I think the industry is right now just focused on getting away from cancer because cigarettes are so bad.
Right.
So bad. It's like if we, were smoking our coffee beans every morning, like we would also be getting cancer from that. Like we just got to get away from like burning ash and like inhaling burning ash.
Well, so what was it that when people were doing dip and stuff like that, what was it causing them cancer? And there's just carcinogens in the actual tobacco that's getting into their
nitrosamines.
Yeah, that's what scared the shit out of me with these. Is I'm like, so
there's
many
always
of these.
the story of the jaw.
So many of these that from the smoking stuff. When I was a kid, that's what affected me. The guys without jaws and stuff. And so like seeing all these young men putting Zins in their mouth, I'm like, aren't you guys scared of losing your jaw?
Totally.
And then I started.
Yeah.
But then I'm smoking and I'm like, aren't you guys scared of?
Yeah, I mean there is one scientist out there who believes that he doesn't believe that nicotine causes cancer, but he believes that if you have cancer, nicotine can accelerate tumor growth.
Whoa.
Which is interesting.
Huh.
It's not a scientific consensus, and it wouldn't make it a carcinogen, but it would definitely be something that if that was proven true by the scientific community, it would cause kind of a reevaluation.
Yeah.
But then again, if you walk into a doctor's office and you're like, I have cancer, like they're probably going to be like, stop zinning.
Yeah.
Like also stop drinking like Celsius all day or whatever.
Right. I'm
like,
sure doctors aren't
they're
like,
going to be like soup maybe or something. I don't
doctors
know.
aren't telling pregnant women it's okay to zin.
Yeah. Pregnancy is another thing. Obviously, you
Yeah.
want to stay away from all stimulants, even coffee. And
I like to say that these things just whenever people ask me, like my mom, for instance, was like, so what does it do? I just like to say it makes me feel scared for like 20 minutes. Because that's what it does for me.
It does increase anxiety.
90% of the time, I have it in my mouth and I'm like, God, I feel so scared and anxious right now. Oh, yeah, it's this thing in my mouth. And then I spit it out. And then like 40 minutes later, I'm like, I got to get another, man. I got to put another in my mouth. And you're over there putting in the 8 milligrams.
Yeah.
How do you not get what's your secret, man?
There haven't been a ton of studies about nicotine and anxiety, but I do think that it increases anxiety because it's a stimulant. Like all stimulants just kind of jack you up, and that's an anxiety response. Now, there's a question about like, what is the cost of anxiety and how bad is that? I think I'm a very low, like not anxious person, so
that's your secret.
So maybe my nicotine regimen hasn't changed.
John's a chiller, confirmed.
Yeah, exactly.
Your baseline is you're an emotionally healthy person.
But I do wonder if you, I mean, first off, like no matter how anxious you are, if you're smoking cigarettes, you should definitely quit smoking cigarettes.
Yeah.
But the question about like for someone who's only using tobacco-free nicotine, if they have an anxiety problem, they should wean down.
Yeah, that's why I'm on the when I have them, I've got the 3 or the 4 because I have. There was a guy from your company who watches our show.
Oh, cool.
I'll have to find him. He reached out to me on
Adam.
I can't remember, and I'm sorry, Adam,
No
if
worries.
that's you. But he was like, "Hey, man, I noticed that you do Zins. I'll send you some free breakers." And he sent me. I was like, "Okay, which flavor do I get?" Because you don't have the one of the gum. I was doing the grape, berry,
yeah.
great flavor. And he had me do the coffee flavored breakers, and they're 4 milligrams. And Anyway, well, I think we're just about out of time.
Cool.
John, thank you
this
so
was
much.
a very
fun conversation.
I really admire not only your the scope of your knowledge about this subject, but the business as well, the history behind it, and your enthusiasm for it. Because anybody who's enthusiastic about anything that they're in, it's infectious, and I admire it. And so, yeah, thank you.
Yeah, this was
Yeah,
very
thanks for having me.
informative. We're gonna have you back on to talk some more stuff.
Yeah,
This,
happy
Yeah.
to.
this is
Anytime.
very fun.
Yeah.
So thank you for coming on. It was a real treat.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Oh, and where can people find you? And you plug whatever you want to plug.
Yeah, I'm usually just John Coogan on social media. I post mostly on X and YouTube, and then the website's lucy.co if you're trying to put down the cigarettes.
There you have it, folks.
Come on over.
God bless America. We'll see you in the bonus.